In this video, we will go over the practice questions for AWS Certified Architect Associate exam. I have given the exam recently and these 5 questions were part of the exam. So if you already tried AWS exam before, or you might have heard from your colleague, friends and family that AWS exams are really tough and they try to evaluate you based on your knowledge and experience, and instead of like if you try to remember things, the exams are really tough. So in this video, let's go over the questions. I will provide you the options, and you can select the answer, and I will try to provide you explanation also. With the explanation, you can get the generic idea about baseline and behind the scene technology as well, which will help you pass the exams. So without any further delay, let's go over the exam questions. So the first question is, you are working as a solution architect for a biotech company who is pioneering research and immunotherapy. They have developed a new cancer treatment that may be able to cure up to 94% of cancer. They stored their research data in S3. However, an intern recently deleted some critical files accidentally. You have been asked to prevent this from happening again. Which of the following solution can be used to prevent accidental data loss? Options we have are enable S3 versioning on the bucket and enable multi-factor authentication delete on the bucket. Make sure the intern can only access data from S3 using signed URLs. Create an IAM bucket policy that disable deletes. Use an S3 infrequent access storage to store the data on. So based on this, my vote will go with the question one. And the reason is, if you look into some keywords in the question, especially if you see this was deleted accidentally, so he didn't want to delete it yeah, intentionally, obviously, and we have to stop it from happening again. So surely option 3 is not will not work, because it's just their S3 infrequent access is only for in case the file is not being used in frequent basis. It has nothing to do with the deletion of the file. Second one is second last, we create an IAM bucket policy that disable deletes. That will not be an answer as well, because they are not asking that how can you disable the deletes completely altogether. They want to make sure the accidental delete does not happen. Third option, where they want to give only signed URLs, so that may also not work, because still you will be able to access the file, and if you have permission, you can delete it. So in my view, the answer is the first option, which is enable S3 versioning on the bucket and enable multi-factor authentication on the delete. To prevent or mitigate future accidental deletion, consider the following features. Enable versioning to keep historical version of an object and MFA delete to require multi-factor authentication. When deleting an object version, let's look at question number 2 now. You are about to release a story that is expected to go viral. During load testing on the website, you discover that there is a read contention on the database tier of your application. Your RDS instance consists of MySQL database on an extra large instance. Which of the following approaches would be best to further scale this instance to meet the anticipated increase in traffic your viral story will generate? So you have to choose 3 options here. In such scenario, when you have to choose like 3 option out of 5, the best strategy to isolate the one which may not apply in this scenario, that's the easiest one. So let's see the first one. Share the MySQL database into multiple copies. So this can be one potential. I'm not saying cannot be, but let's see the other one. Mostly when they said you have to, if you see the question, they mentioned would be best to further scale in this instance. So you might have to think about this instance itself, what you can do in this. So and let's see the second one. Modify the DB instance SSD storage setting for provision IOPS. So yeah, this is very good option. In normal scenario, if you change the disk to SSD and make it provision IOPS, the DB reads will be very faster. So in my view, this may be one of the option. Let's go to the third one. So add a RDS multi-AZ for increased read performance. This is surely not the answer, because the multi-AZ is generally for DR and disaster recovery environment, where you have a secondary or high availability. To provide you high availability, you will do this multi-AZ configuration, and generally they are not used for the read performance. So surely that is not the answer. Use elastic cache for the frequently read and static data. So this is surely can be a possible answer, where you add elastic cache to so that your read performance will be fast, especially on the static data. And the fifth answer is add a RDS read replica to increase read performance. Definitely. So in my view, out of these five, the second, modify the DB instance SSD storage setting for provision IOPS is the correct answer. Second one is the use elastic cache, and third is the read replica. The fifth and the answer which is in fifth is very important, because in the exam at least 3 or 4 questions were there where the options were regarding the read of a service. About the database, where how can you make the read operation faster, and for more 3 or 4 questions this was the sure shot answer. So I will go with these 3 answers for the question number 2. Let's move to question number 3 now. You have created a web application where users will be able to upload photos they create to your website. This web application must be able to call the S3 API layer in order to be able to do this function. Where should you store your API credential while maintaining the maximum level of security? Let's look at the answer. So the question is about like how you will save the credential when your service will try to read or write or call S3 APIs. So first one, don't save your API credential. Instead, create a role in IAM and assign this role to an EC2 instance when you first create it. Looks like this one very to answer to me, but let's go with the other options as well. Get the API credential using EC2 instance user data, definitely not a recommended option as well to store any credential in your EC2 instance. Save your API credential in a public GitHub repository, not an option at all. Save an API credential locally to each EC2 instance, that's not an option. So I will go with the option number 1 here, where we will create a role in IAM and assign it to EC2 so that it can go ahead and read, write, or whatever permission you will give for S3, whatever operation you want to do in S3, you can do using that particular role. And this is a sure shot question. You will get a question with respect to creating a rule, or about authentication, or not authentication, about access of a particular AWS resource from your EC2 instance or some other Lambda or somewhere else. So definitely keep in mind, if you see such questions, select the one with the role. Let's go over the question number 4 now. Which options are valid to protect your Amazon S3 data at rest using server-side encryption? Encryption will be surely part of your AWS exam. At least 3 to 4 questions will come, and this was the question in my exam. So in which they wanted to know how to keep data in S3 encrypted. Encryption in rest, actually what they mean. So let's go over the options. You have to choose out of 3 here. First option, server-side encryption with AWS encryption SDK. I am not familiar of this one, and I have never heard about this encryption SDK. So let's go over the next question. Next option, server-side encryption with customer provided keys, SACC. So yes, this is one of the options you can select, because this is a valid option where you can do a server-side encryption with where customer provide the key, they select their own key for the encryption at the rest. So yes, the second will be surely an answer here. Third, server-side encryption with SSL TLS. So surely this is not an option, because SSL and TLS is generally used in data in motion. They are not for the data in at rest. So obviously the first is in not the option. The third one is not an option. So remaining two most probably will be correct answers too. So server-side encryption with customer master key CMKs stored in AWS Key Management Service SAC KMS. Definitely it is an answer. You can read more in the description below. I have provided a generic description on why this option looks correct to me. Fifth and final one, server-side encryption with S3 managed keys. Yes, S3 provides its own server-side encryption, so you can definitely, this is an answer too. So these three are the correct answer in my view. Please select these three if you get in the exam. Let's go fifth and final question. You have been engaged as a consultant by a company that generates utility bills and publishes them online. PDF images are generated when stored on a high performance RDS instance. So it's a high performance RDS instance. Customers view invoices once per month. Recently, the number of customers has increased threefolds, and the wait time necessary to view the invoices has increased unacceptably. The CTO is unwilling to alter the code base more than necessary this quarter, but needs to return performance on the acceptable level before the end of the month print run. Which of the following solution would be you feel comfortable proposing to the CTO and GM? So it is like the way I read this question is generally is utility bill. So keep in mind the data is not static; it will generate every once a month. So a lot of the things will be in my mind. The data is constantly changing. Let's go over the options we have to choose out of 5 here. So first one is install an elastic cache cluster in front of RDS installation. Okay, let's go over the second one. Use CloudFront to accelerate presentation of the PDF images. Third one, move the metadata to DynamoDB solution, permitting real-time scaling of read IOPS to match the demand. This is a very good option, but this may not fit into this one, because the CTO don't want to change the code base, and changing from an RDS instance to DynamoDB, which is a document style database, will require a lot of code change. So third one is definitely not an option. Let's go to the fourth one. Create a RDS read replicas and additional web app instances across the available AZs. And the fifth one is evaluate the risk and benefits associated with RDS instance type upgrade. So okay, let's go to look at the option number one more time. Install an elastic cache cluster in front of the RDS installation. So as I mentioned, this utility bills are generated once a month and very customer or specific data in it. So it may not be useful, because every customer and the reports will be generated individually for them. So I don't think the option number one will be good for this. And let's go to the second one, CloudFront to keep the PDF images. So again, the PDF images are generated in an RDS instance. It's the high performance RDS here. So I don't think that can be a good option there too. Let's go over the fourth and fifth answers. Create an RDS read replicas. Definitely, as I mentioned, every time whenever you see that you have to improve the read performance of a client, you have to select this option somehow. It's most valuable and good service provided by AWS, and that's why they want to make sure people use it to enhance the performance of their application. That's why they keep bringing in their AWS architect exam questions. So this is one of the correct answer, where you have to create a RDS read replicas and additional web instances across all available zones so that the customer can use their performance will be faster. And the fifth option looks good to me as well, because obviously you don't want to make any code change and you want to make sure this can be implemented as soon as possible before this end of the month run. So definitely you have to select this option where you can enhance, though they have mentioned that this is a high performance RDS instance. However, still there's a chance you can look for furthermore higher performing instance, and you can update the behind the scene RDS instance hardware infrastructure. So these are the 5 questions which please, I have got this in this last exam. Please feel free to go over it again. I will be uploading more videos on the other questions. Please like the video if this was helpful for you, and please subscribe so that you will be aware of if I publish a new video, and you will be ready for your exams. Best of luck. Have a good day. An application load balancer is in front of an auto-scaling group of EC2 instances, and the instances are backed by an RDS database. The auto-scaling group has been configured to use default termination policy. You are testing the auto-scaling group and have triggered an scale in. Which instance will be terminated first? We have 4 options. The instance launched from the oldest launch configuration. This looks like a probable answer, but let's go over the other answers as well. The instance for which the load balancer stops sending traffic. Mostly when a default configuration, generally it goes round robin, so it generally does not happen that suddenly it stops traffic for a particular node. So this might not be the answer. The longest running instance. This can be another one, but based on the scenario, like I will give you the explanation quickly on that. The auto-scaling group will be randomly selected an instance to terminate. This might not be the one. So out of these 4, the first one looks to me the correct answer. Then in a by default scale-in policy, the instance which launched from oldest configuration will be terminated first. There's a brief description of it, you may get similar kind of question in which they may ask you, okay, in one availability zone you have 2 instances running, in a other availability zone 4 instances are running, and which when scaling happens, in which zone it will terminate the instances first. So in default termination policy, it will try to balance the availability zone. So if a 2 in one and there's a 4 instance running on another availability zone, it will try to balance it, and it will try to first make it reduce from 4 to 3 and then 3 to 2. And for this particular specific scenario, when they have not given such scenario where you have two availability zone where they have to balance, you can easily go with the option that it will go with the oldest launch configuration. Let's move to the question number 2. You have multiple EC2 instances housing application in a VPC in a single availability zone. Your EC2 workload needs low latency network performance, high network throughput, and a tightly coupled node-to-node communication. What is the best measure you can do to ensure this throughput? So clearly from the question, it seems like it's a Kafka or Cassandra or any distributed system where you have to have a very high network throughput between the nodes. The option number 1, use elastic network interfaces. Surely this will not be the option because ENI is the most basic network interfaces. Minimum it should be enhanced network adapter, but obviously it's not asking for any network enhancement in this question, so this might not be the correct answer. Auto scaling groups, again there's no throttling happening with respect to EC2 instances, so this will not be the correct answer where they need to scale up and scale down based on the load. Launch your instances in cluster placement group. So this most probably the answer, because here you are creating a group of EC2 instances in a particular availability zone or a region where they are grouped together, and they might be mostly using internal AWS network, their private IPs, so that communication between them are very fast. Increase the size of the instances. So that's not the answer too. So I'm going with option number 3. If you like to know more, you can pause the video and you can go over the more elaborated description here. Let me move on to the next question. A team of architects is designing a new AWS environment for a company which wants to migrate to the cloud. The architects are considering the use of EC2 instances with instance store volumes. The architects realize that the data on the instance store volume are ephemeral, which action will not cause data to be deleted from the instance store volume. Option 1, hardware disk failure. Definitely this will cause you will lose the data. Instance is stopped. Definitely this will also, you will lose the data if instance stops. The underlying disk drive fails. Definitely you will lose the data. And fourth is reboot. I will go with the option reboot. In all other options, when there's an underlying disk fails, the instance stops, the instance terminates, or it is getting terminated, um, or hard disk failure. In all those scenarios, you will lose the data from instance store volume, as it is an ephemeral storage. Let's move to the next question. An application is hosted on EC2 instance in a VPC, the instance in a subnet in a VPC, and the instance has a public IP address. There is also an internet gateway and security group in the proper ingress configured. But but your testers are unable to access to instance from the internet. What could be the problem? First option. Make sure the instance has a private IP address. Definitely is not an answer for connecting internet. It has to be a private IP, or it has to have a net gateway or those kind of scenario. As it already has a public IP, so we don't need to worry about that. Next question, next option, add a route to the route table from the subnet containing the instance to the internet gateway. This most probably the answer, but let me move to the next ones first. A net gateway needs to be configured. There's already an internet gateway. You don't need a new net gateway. Surely. The next, a virtual private gateway needs to be configured. Definitely, that's not a correct answer as well. So I will go with the option number 2. Add a route to the route table from the subnet containing an instance to the internet gateway. And this is the correct answer, as in the steps what they mentioned in the top in the question, they should have mentioned this step where there should be a route in the route table to the internet gateway. Question number 5. You have been assigned to create an architecture which uses load balancer to direct traffic to an auto-scaling group of EC2 instances across multiple availability zones. The application to be deployed on these instances is a life insurance application which requires path-based and host-based routing. Which type of load balancer will you need to use? Definitely for path and host-based routing, you have to select for application load balancer. AWS, we generally have 3 type of load balancer: application load balancer, classic load balancer, and network load balancer. You choose application load balancer when you need any path-based routing, host-based routing, or any normal application, web application based routing. Classic load balancer is very rarely used, not preferred to. Generally, application load balancer is the preferred load balancer. Network load balancer you use when you need very high throughput. So in the question, if they ask about millions of requests and coming in a quick succession, you should select network load balancer. Qualities of ALBs. So in the exam, if they ask about some scenario based question with respect to, if any, based on some fields on URL or on the headers, if you want to forward a request to a particular EC2 instance or group of instance, you should select this. If you want to support for returning a custom HTTP response, I had a similar question where the application was only supporting HTTPS. However, the clients want to make HTTP and HTTPS both kind of requests. So in what load balancer you will use so that the application will receive the request only in HTTPS. In that scenario, the application load balancer you have to customize, even though if you are receiving the request at HTTP or HTTPS, and in the application EC2 instance only should receive the HTTPS request. That can be handled only at ALB. So that's all for it, guys. If you're preparing for exam, best of luck. If you like this video, please like and share, and please subscribe. That will be a huge encouragement for me to make more such videos. Thank you very much.